professor, and good day classmates. So today is we're going to report the chapter 4 with my group mates. So before I will start the reporting, I would like to introduce my name. I am Blessel Alvarez Persona. So we will tackle about the decision making. So first, I will discuss the decision making concept. Decision making concepts. Decision making can be seen as a problem solving process that generates a solution that is considered to be ideal. So when we say decision making concept, it is on how we decide or how we make our decision on a problem, kung paano ta mag-decide sa itong mga decision sa mga problema na to, kung every decision na to kay na may mga process, no, kung paano na to masolusyonan. So consequently, it is a mechanism that can be more or less logical or irrational and based on overt or implicit knowledge and belief. So decision making also is also a mechanism wherein logical or irrational. Sa decision making is also need na siya og mga knowledge or beliefs na to wherein mag-decide ta sa atong mga decision. Kinahanglan na to og knowledge and beliefs para example mag-apply ta sa atong paano ta mag-solve sa atong problems. So paano mo ta decide sa atong problema kung wala tay knowledge or wala tay mga beliefs nga mga nabala na to. So decision making also is a mechanism and a significant part of decision making involves evaluating a finite range of alternatives that are defined in terms of evaluate criteria. So in decision making also may criteria na siya wherein dira ta magbase kung sa mga ginabasihan nato kung sakto ba natong mga decision. So paano nato mabalaan kung sakto atong mga decision sa atong problema. So kuan ta og criteria, basihan ba o para so the challenge would be to rate these alternatives in terms of how appealing they are to the decision maker while considering all the criteria at the same time. And next is decision making. Decision making is the process of making choices by identifying a decision, gathering information, and assessing alternative resolution. Multiple criteria decision analysis, or MCDA, focuses on solving these problems. While very old, this field of decision making has drawn attention from many researchers and practitioners, and still widely debated as there are many MCDA approaches that can produce very different results when applied to exactly the same data. So in the multiple criteria decision or analysis or MCDA, focus lang ni sila sa kung paano masolusyonan ang isa ka problem wherein may mga researches sila nga gapangita sa mga solutions, and they are also debated sa mga solutions nga para ma-solve ang isa ka problem, and also gagather sila in different results kung amo na gina-debate nila ang mga solutions sa problema, and sa different result kung diin ba gid sakto or diin ang i-decide ana nga problem. And next is the environmental influence in decision making. The environment of decision makers will play a role in the decision making process. A factor affecting cognitive performance, for example, is environmental uncertainty, Davidson 2006. So to mean decision making that has an effect on our environment. So mag-decide ta also is ka-effect sa atong environment also. So there are effects atong decisions. Environmental influence in decision making. So first is the temperature. So tanan man taguro naka-experience kay we're now in college. So wala sad guro na wala naka-experience diri kung paano mag-decide, no. So temperature, naka kuan ka naka try na ko ani nag-experience ako kung tungod sa temperature, maglisod ta decide sa to ang decision. Example is grabe ka init sa to ang kuan palibot. So karang murag kuha na tong decision, mapiktuhan na tong decision kung paano na to kuha na tong problema, paano to masolusyonan kay because wala na ta na-focus atong mind nga kung unsa na tong problema because sa kainit sa atong palibot. So sa food also is gakapikto sad na siya sa decision making. So example na pwede makakuan ang sa katawo maka-commit decision because of food. Example is pigado na super tas wala na yung makaon yung family. So maka-commit siya decision ana tungod kinanglano niya. And the pollutants also and population density. Also the sound. So maka effect also ang sound sa atong decision and the light. So next is the characteristic of decision making. Objectives have to be set first. So before we decide our decision or para sa atong problems is we need also to know our objective first kung sakto ba na ang para na ang decision. So we need to be set first sa atong decision kung kung sakto ba na ang problem ang atong ma-decide. And next is the requirements must be graded and placed in order of performance. We need to build alternate acts. The alternative must be measured against all targets. Tentative decision is the option which can accomplish all the objectives. And the tentative decision is evaluated for more. And next is the preliminary decision is reviewed for more potential implications. Decisive action is taken and further action is taken to avoid any negative effects from being issues and to continue all processes all over again. There are usually followed steps leading to a decision model that could be used to assess an optimal production schedule. And next is characteristic of good decision. First is a good decision positively impact others. So this statement may seem obvious, but if it were, bad decision would exist. After all, anybody who is adversely affected by a decision immediately classify that decision as bad. Of course, now you just need to find a common definition of positive. So next is the decisions are replicable. So decision is replicable. People want to mimic a bad decision like a case of herpes. That enough said, and feel free to tweet that. And next is the decision foster opportunity. So an effective decision empowers others to act. Then the next is the decision include others. Good decision include others arriving at the conclusion that serve as the next is the decision include others arriving at conclusion that serves the company is a process. There are boxes to check off that ensure accountabilities are established and authorities are met. And this next is the decision is executable. Decision is executable. Integral to any decision is clarity around what the decision is. If there's ambiguity about what to do next, then the decision it's clear enough. And clarity minimizes uncertainty, and although this may sound like an obvious statement, remember that what's apparent to you may be newfound insight to others. And next is the decision are systematic. Ruling out the good criteria from the bad requires time, resources, clear. There's that word again, requirements as to what the goal is and judgment to estimate the probability of success. And next is the decision are accountable. With clarity also comes accountability. It's not easy hiding behind something that outlines in detail the roles, responsibilities, or expectations associated with a new decision. Tack on the timeline assessed necessary and condition that define success, and you're pretty much on a one-way highway to execution without any U-turns, metaphor, or accountability avoidance. The decision are pragmatic. Humans are creature of emotions, which means eliminating emotion from a decision isn't feasible. However, what can be eliminated are self-serving emotional biases. In the SEAL teams, for example, there were the three criteria upon which decisions were made: the mission, the team, and the individual. Namely, who does the decision serve? Hint, the individual comes last. And last is the good decision involve awareness. Uh, if you're tasked with deciding how to outline your company's strategy for the next 10 years but you've never made a strategic outline, chances are you or should defer to the next subject matter expert. The point is for a decision to positively impact others, foster opportunity, or any of the found aforementioned characteristics. You need to cognizant of your when you're operating within your circle of influence, and when you're pushing its boundaries, don't be the person close to. And that's all of my report, and Argabio will be the next reporter.
My name is Epeldibjer Gabio, and I will be discussing the topic about decision-making techniques. Decision-making techniques can be separated into two broad categories: the group decision-making techniques and the individual decision-making techniques. Decision-making techniques: decisions made after careful and systematic analysis of a problem and evaluation of several alternatives based on rational and logical facts and figures. Group decision making, also known as collaborative decision making, is a situation faced when individuals collectively make a choice from the alternatives before them. The decision is then no longer attributable to any single individual who is a member of the group. Example, personal experience I had in my group. Group decisions making is a situation faced when individuals collectively make a choice from alternatives before them. The decision is then no longer attributable to any single individual who is a member of the group. Collaborative decisions taking in workplace environment is one of the most effective models for creating buy-in from another stakeholders, building trust and promoting innovation. In keeping with the concept of cooperation, collective decisions often appear to be more successful than decisions made by a single person. Collaborative or collective decision making would often be preferred under normal daily circumstances, and will produce more benefits than individual decision making when there is room for proper deliberation, negotiation, and dialogue. For certain cases. However, this approach may also have disadvantages. Certain methods of decision making may be better in serious emergencies or crisis situations because emergency actions can need to be taken quicker with less time for deliberation. On the other hand, additional consideration must also be taken into account when evaluating the appropriateness of a decision-making framework. For instance, the likelihood of group fragmentation may often also occur, causing certain groups to make more drastic decisions in the direction of individuals' inclinations than those of their individual members. Individual decision making. In general, a person takes prompt decisions when in group. Keeping any one person responsible from a wrong decision is not easy. Human decision taking usually saves time, resources, and energy as individuals make timely and rational choices. Although taking group decision takes a lot of time, money, and energy. Individual decision making in the context of a human organization is a complex process which involves individual reasoning about own needs, capabilities, and experience, about the surrounding formal organization, social structure, and processes. Decision-making approaches. We make the majority of the decisions as individuals. It is important to look at the approaches that we follow in our individual decision making in the effort to take more successful decisions. The three approaches to decision making are avoiding, problem solving, and problem seeking. As the outcome of the decisions are not clear, it is necessary to concentrate on how a decision is made to increase the consistency of the decision. There are a variety of ways to describe decision-making methods, but we will find three broad groupings for our purposes. For certain cases, we all prefer to take actions at one time or another using all of the methods. Rational or analytical approach, exemplified by systematic decision making, defines upfront success factors, looks for details and objectively explores how each solution makes success factor. Decision making is organized and decisions can be taken under the assumption of the desired solution except for major, unforeseeable, or unpredictable incidents. Consideration of the implication of the final decision. Intuitive decision-making approach, relying on emotions and feelings. Careful planning is not possible or not desired. People will point to a gut feeling or hunch as the cause for a choice, reflecting that explanation is not accessible through conscious thought. And the third one is the random or chance approach. In this approach, a decision is made on impulse without thought. Flipping a coin or using a decision wheel would be representative of employing this approach. It is sometimes considered a dependent style because this approach can promote denial of responsibility. Analytical approach assumes that the decision maker is a unique actor who behaves intelligently and rationally. He is fully aware of all available feasible alternatives and considers all alternatives as well as the consequences, and chooses the alternative that secures the maximum gain. As it is unpredictable, you can never give it an exact value or probability. For example, you couldn't predict the probability of falling down a flight of stairs in the next 10 years, as that's a completely random event.
Decision-making approaches a consequence of personality. Any of our emotional thought process can be defined by personality. So it's natural to assume that our preferred approach is to the decision-making is feature of our personality. There is ample proof that personality develops over time and evolves. This may also imply changes in personality result from our approach to decision taking that contribute to improve in our thought process. So this means that our personality is a big factor of our decision making. Example, when you choose your course in college, it based on your personality. You pick your course that suits to your personality. In short, it is your passion. And it said that our personality develop and evolve all over the time. And one of the reason is because of our decision that we made in our life. It helps our personality develop and evolve. This is how we can improve an rational or analytic decision maker. Have a ready decision making process that you know it works. This help you jump directly through decision making phase without having to postpone deciding the step you will be taking. Means that have a ready decision process. Nga kabalo ka nga mag-work sa situation or problem. This will help you jump through decision phase without doubting what the decision process that you will use or imong gamiton to solve the situation or the problem. Next is gain knowledge of pitfall and prejudices in decision taking so they can be avoided when making decision. Gain knowledge para nakay idea what you are doing or what is your next move to solve the problem or the situation. Next is how we can improve an intuitive decision maker. Ask or accept broad question well in advance of a decision. It helps the unconscious mind to work behind the scenes to provide ideas and suggestions for a decision. So, this means let them ask a question or you will the one who will ask them if they have an idea or a suggestion for addition of knowledge to make a better decision or a choice. Next is know where and when your intuition is working and not. Intuition work best in place we have a great deal of expertise in. Alamin mo kung ang iyong solusyon ba ay gumagana or hindi para hindi failure ang kalalabasan ng iyong ginawang desisyon para hindi resulta sa negative outcome. Next is increase your reflection. This makes insight more credible as experience are interpreted and applied to subconscious that help categorize the experience more accurately. Increase your reflection or learn from the experience or apply what you learn from the past decision of your life. And the last one, play games which involve decision making that stimulate life choice, provide low risk environment where patterns can be formed to improve them. Play games which involves decision making para ma-improve yung decision making skills mo or para mabawasan rin ang risk na maling decision or to create a positive outcome or result. Next is how we can improve on random or chance decision maker. First is improve your awareness and appreciation. Next is recognize positive results as they arise and increase the probability of the successful outcome. Means, alamin mo kung ang resulta ng iyong desisyon ay positive ba or negative para alam mo na ang kalalabasan ng iyong pipiliing desisyon. Apply know-how. It will increase the basis for understanding good opportunities versus bad ones. Apply know-how. It will increase the basis for understanding good opportunities or it will create a positive outcome or a positive result. And the last is know the risks and uncertainties. Choosing where the chance are in favor is a smart way to maximize the positive result. Know the risks and uncertainties. Alamin mo kung ano ang mga risk na sa iyong desisyon na pinapipilian para madali mong malaman kung ano ang iyong gagamiting desisyon or pipiliing desisyon. Next is similar decision making. GOFER. GOFER stands for goals, option, facts, effect, and review. That's GOFER. That's the 5 decision making steps. First is goal clarification, survey values and objectives. Means that alamin mo yung objective para mas ma-organize mo ang iyong desisyon na maaari mong gawin. Next is option generation. Consider a wide range of option and alternative action. Damihan mo ang iyong option para marami kang mapagpilian at piliin mo ang pinaka-effective or yung sa tingin mo makatulong sa sitwasyon or problema na iyong haharapin. Fact finding. Search for information. Make sure that the information that you gather are legit o siguraduhin mong legit ang iyong impormasyon. Dahil ito ay napaka-importante. Consideration of effect. Weigh the positive and negative consequence of the option. Means that consider already what is the outcome of what is the result. Weigh the positive and negative sa iyong pipiliing option. And the last one is review and implementation. Plan how to review the option and implement them. Planuhing maigi bago mo gawin, or plan how to review the option to prevent negative effect or outcome. And the next is decide. Decide stands for define, establish or enumerate, consider or collect, identify, develop, and evaluate. First is decide. Decide the problem. Means know the problem so you can easily make a solution to solve the problem. Second is establish. Establish and enumerate all the criteria so you can easily solve the problem. Next is identify the best alternative, meaning that identify what is alternative or option that you know it works well or alternative that perfectly solve the problem. Next one is develop and implement plan of action. Create a plan so you have an idea how to solve the problem well, and also planning help you know what is your next move. And the last one is evaluate. Means evaluate and monitor the solution and examine feedback if necessary. Meaning of evaluate all of your options and select the meaning Evaluate all of your options and select the best option you think that can easily solve your problem. 7. Decision making processes. First, outline the goal and outcome. Means it is important to outline the goal and outcome. It will help you know what is the result of your decision, if it's negative or positive. And outline the goal helps you also to make a positive outcome or result. Next is gather the data. Gather the data or information so you have an idea what you are doing. Develop alternatives. Means the more alternatives or the more option, the better. Many options can help you select the best choice that works well in that situation. List pros and cons in each alternative. This will help you easily pick what alternative you will use to solve the problem. Immediately take action to implement it, meaning don't waste time so the problem don't worse. And the last one, learn from and reflect on the decision. Means learn and apply what you have learned to the past situation that you have already faced, so you can easily solve the situation or the problem. In short, apply your experience.
There are 8 stages of moral decision making. A. Create and nurture the relationship, norms, and procedures that will influence how problems are understood and communicated. B. This stage takes place prior to and during a moral dilemma. C. Recognize that a problem exists. D. Identify computing explanation for the problem and evaluate the drivers behind those interpretation. E. Sift through various possible action and response and determine which is more justifiable. Examine the competing commitment which might distract from more moral courses of action and then prioritize and commit to moral values over other personal, institutional or social values. F. Follow through with action that support the more justified decision. G. Reflection in action. H. Reflection on action. Recommendation for an effective decision making on the job. Scenario-based conditioning and preparation are required to prepare criminal justice personnel to take critical duty-focused decisions. Simulator for police training are constantly dependent on criminal justice experts to refine the decision-making capabilities of officers as finely as possible. In a belt use of force scenario, some simulators are required trainees to experience near misses or an impact. This will bring a truly comprehensive experience. In additional to simulator training, there are another tips that criminal justice practitioners may apply to their decision-making process, which can save a life, like to increase the number of options, look at a problem from multiple viewpoints and angles. Assess the situation with a view to recognize threat and non-threat, seek to make rational decisions about how to respond accordingly. Visualize the way situations play out before the act. Challenge perception about a situation. Seek support and advice from colleagues in circumstances that require it. Make choice about the most important information and seek to commit it to memory. Be mindful of accept the feeling before making a conscious move to make rational decision. Practice verbal and non-verbal communication skills with colleagues to communicate information about how to respond to a situation.
Everyone, I Richard Isoyo Baba discussing of decision making style in management and administration. Many people believe that decision making is not a rational option but a product of personality. With that, leaders must understand that personality cannot stand in the way of critical decision making. Good leaders will adapt their decision making strategy to match the demand of various circumstances. The most influential leaders learn how to tailor their decision-making style to suit specific circumstances. Different contexts and constitution calls for individual management responses, and sometimes multiple decision-making approach. Leaders can learn how to make informed choices in a variety of diverse situations by understanding the different way of decision making and being mindful of warning signs. 4 styles of decision making. Directive decision making. Usually, policy decision makers sort of the pros and cons of situation based on what they already know. Decision makers is the directive are very rational and have a little tolerance for uncertainty. Instead of going to others for more details, their decisions are rooted in their own experience and reasoning. The upside of the styles is the decision making is fast. Ownership is transparent and no extra communication needed. This is the PI directive, P directive, and A analytic, E conceptual, I behavioral. When to use directive decision making? In a situation characterized by continuity, repeated patterns, and predictable events, these styles of decision making is fine. For situations where there is a straightforward and unchallenged cause of effect of relationship, reserves guidelines decision, in other words, a correct response exists and collectively understood. A leader's roles directive decision making. A leader has a sense of situation categorized in as scenario that call for a clear decision and appropriate responses. Ensure best practice are placed for ongoing procedures. Remember, ask yourself when satisfying the situation, is this my decision to make? And do I have all the details precisely to make this decision? Where appropriate, delegate, but remember to communicate in a simple, direct language. It's the roles of a leader to realize when there's no need for intensive interpersonal contact and to make clear decisions based on knowledge they already have. Sign you need to use a different approach. Once operation runs smoothly, it is easy for leaders to become victims of compliancy. Leaders must be mindful of the changing complexity of every situation. When you start making complicated jobs simply by using decision, you need to change your approach. Understand that changing circumstances demand changing style of decision making. For example, mo apply ka og trabaho. dapat ang imuhang approach sa imuhang gi-applyan, baba ka ng magpakaubos ka niya ba. Usbo nimo ang imuhang style sa pag-approach para maginahan pud siya nimo. Ano siya? Analytic decision making. Before taking actions, strategic decision makers analyze a lot of details. Analytic leaders, for example, rely on direct observation, data and facts to back their decisions, like decision makers in the guidelines. However, an analytic decision makers may seek information and advance from others of offer to refute their own expertise. These decision makers have a high degree of uncertainty, tolerance, are extremely adaptable, but they refer to monitor certain aspects of the decision process. The style is a well-rounded decision-making strategy that can be time-consuming. For example, ang analytic decision-making, igo na siya mo buhat sa kana na butang, iyahan na lang na kuan na pag-aralan. Mao na siya ang analytic decision making. Iyahan nang na studyhan kung unsa ang dapat buhaton. Mao na siya. This is the fourth. Describe analytic, diagnostic analytic, predictive analytic, descriptive analytic. Mano siya ang 4 constitution. When to use analytic decision making. In situation where there may be more than one right answer, analytic decisions are helpful. Use this decision making style to solve issue where the relationship between cause and effect and discoverable but not immediately apparent. You use this approach mainly to evaluate multiple options and approaches and to use facts-based management and directive effective actions. A leader's role is analytic decision making. Unlike decision making, directive before agreeing on a course of action. Leader must evaluate all the details they have available. Assembling a team of experts to assign with analytic decision is advantageous. Leaders must before freely consider contradictory advance and idea. At the same time, to make the most of the analytic decision-making process, leaders need to consider non-expert perspective. For example, dili na siya pareha sa directive decision-making. Ang kaning analytic decision-making is mura na siya mangita ka og team na itapok nimo, na i-assign nimo siya kung unsa ang ilahang na kung dira sila komportable na obra, dira na nimo sila i-assign. Muna siya ang analytic kanang imuha na silang i-assign para makuha nila ang unsa ang ilahang makaya. Sign you need to use a different approach. Decision paralysis is the most important warning sign of overuse of the logical decision form. When you find yourself living in the state of over-analysis or overthinking without talking, action, or making a decision, this strategy must be removed. Thank you. Three conceptual decision making. Compared by the guideline of empirical approaches and rational decision making process takes a more collaborative approach. Conceptual decision makers promote innovative thinking and teamwork and take a wide variety of new points into a consideration. These decision makers are based on success and what to look well into the future when it comes to making critical decision. Na muna siya ang ubra pa lang mo pero ang giuna-una ninyo successful na. Muna siya. Decision making style: conceptual, directive, behavioral, analytical. Na form siya. When to use conceptual decision making: apply logical decision talking to issue involving several conflicting ideas. This decision style is ideally suited to circumstances that are marked by unpredictability and tailored to creative and invention approach. You see, no immediate solution in this situation, but trends emerge over time. The use of conceptual decision-making style account for null terms planning and unknown variables. A leader's roles of conceptual decision-making. To be successful in analytic decision talking, leaders need to create an atmosphere that furthers experiment designed to uncover instructive trends over time. Leaders will need to make a point of growing consideration and interaction. Build groups of people who can share new ideas and assign with difficult decision talking and execution. Efficient is the key of leaders need to take the time to relieve. Then you need to use a different approach. If the decision you need to make include a situation that needs structures and established outcomes, and conceptual approach should not be employed. Often decisions that need to determine immediate consequence and situation in which there is no space for error and not subject to logical decision talking. Behavioral decision making. Behavioral decisions seek to make sure that everyone is working together well. Like the conceptual method, behavioral decision is group-oriented. However, the community is giving the choice available to them, rather than brainstorming alternative solution. From their community, will discuss each choice, pros and cons. This decision-making method takes into account several different viewpoints and views in the process. This is the graph of a cycle of process. Choice set, choice outcome, self-attribution, higher level goals, lower level goals. Balik na po siya sa ang rotation cycle of when to use behavioral decision making. The behavioral style requires proactive communication, as with conceptual decision making. This style takes a more introspective approach by discussion solutions that have worked in the past, rather than attempting to disclose new patterns. A leader roles in behavioral decision making. Leader is the style of decision making need to open lines of communication. Again, build group to people who can contribute their opinions and promote democratic debate. Don't only impose a course of action when using a behavioral decision-making method. Consider what decision generate the most unity within the company instead. Sign you need to use different approach. If group discussion session cannot reach a solution, a new strategy will need to be considered. Conversely, if new idea never come up or no one questions views, then behavioral decision making might not be the best choice.
When to use conceptual decision making. Apply logical decision taking to issues involving several conflicting ideas. This decision style is very ideally suited to circumstances that are marked by unpredictability and tailored to creative and inventive approaches. You see no immediate solution in this situation, but trends emerge over time. The use of conceptual decision-making style accounts for long-term planning and unknown variables. Conceptual decision makers encourage creative thinking and collaboration and consider a broad array of perspectives. Apply conceptual decision making to problems that are involved many competing ideas. A leader's role in conceptual decision making. To be successful in analytical decision taking, leaders need to create an atmosphere that fosters experiment designed to uncover instructive trends over time. Leaders will need to make a point of growing coordination and interaction. Build a groups of people who can share new ideas and assist with difficult decision taking and execution. Patience is the key, and leaders need to take the time to reflect. Ang leader ay dapat gumawa ng isang punto ng pakikipag-ugnayan at komunikasyon. Lumikha ng mga grupo ng mga tao na maaaring mag-ambag ng mga makabagong idea at tumulong sa pagbuo at paghatid ng mga komplikadong desisyon. Signs you need to use different approach. If the decision you need to make includes a situation that needs structure and established outcomes, a conceptual approach should not be employed. Often, decisions that need determine immediate consequence and situation in which there is no space of error are not subject to logical decisions taking. Kung ang desisyon na kailangan mong gawin ay nasasangkot ng isang sitwasyon na nangangailangan ng istruktura, hindi ka dapat gumamit ng isang konseptong diskarte. Behavioral decision making. Behavioral decisions seek to make sure that everyone is working together well. Like the conceptual method, behavioral decision is a group-oriented. However, the community is given the choices available to them rather than brainstorming alternative solutions. From there, the community will discuss each choice's pros and cons. This decision-making method takes into account several different viewpoints and views in the process. Subukang tiyaking gumagana ng maayos ang lahat. Tulad ng conceptual, ang behavioral ay nakatuon sa pangkat. Sa halip na mag-brainstormer ng mga potential na solusyon, binibigyan ang grupo ng mga option na magagamit sa kanila. Mula doon, tinatalakay ng mga grupo ang mga kalamangan at kahinaan ng bawat pagpipilian. When to use behavioral decision making. The behavioral style requires proactive communication, as with conceptual decision making. This style takes a more introspective approach by discussing solutions that have worked in the past rather than attempting to discuss new patterns. Tulad ng conceptual decision making, ang behavioral style ay nangangailangan ng aktibong komunikasyon. Ang estilong ito ay tumatagal ng isang mas introspective na diskarte sa pamamagitan ng pagtalakay ng mga solusyon na nagtatrabaho sa nakaraan sa halip na subukang magbunyag ng mga bagong pattern. A leader's role in behavioral decision making. Leaders in this style of decision making need to open up lines of communication. Again, build groups of people who can contribute their opinions and promote democratic debate. Don't only impose a course of action when using the behavioral decision-making method. Consider what decision generates of unity within the company instead. Kailangan buksan ng pinuno ang linya ng komunikasyon. Kapag gumagamit ng behavioral decision-making style, huwag lamang magpataw ng isang kurso ng aksyon. Sa halip, tingnan kung anong desisyon ang lumilikha ng pinakamaraming pagkakaisa sa loob ng organisasyon. Signs you need to use different approach. If group discussion sessions cannot reach a resolution, a new strategy will need to be considered. Conversely, if new ideas never come up or no one questions views, then behavioral decision making might not be the best choice. Kung ang session ng talakayan ng grupo ay hindi kailanman nagkakasundo, maaring kailangan mong isaalang-alang ang isa pang paraan. Sa kabaligtaran, kung ang mga bagong idea ay walang nagbibigay ng mga opinion, ang behavioral decision making ay hindi mo dapat piliin. Traits and values in decision making. Decision making and personality traits. Personality characteristics have much greater role to play in decision taking you would expect. Some people are indecisive because of their very existence. They find most decisions quite difficult to make. These people I also find very committed to the decision when they do. A successful decision is made with the alignment of three eyes, heart, and gut, or as defined in the holistic decision-making strategy. When three are finally in harmony, it's although decision, there is no way this gets out. However, by getting an approach and knowing how our attitudes influence our decision, we can make them a little easier. Ang mga katangian ng personalidad ay may mas malaking papel na dapat gampanan sa paggawa ng desisyon kaysa iyong inaasahan. Dahil sa kanilang pag-iral, nakikita nilang mahirap gawin ang mga karamihan na desisyon. Ang isang matagumpay na desisyon ay ginagawa gamit ang pagkakahanay ng tatlong mata, puso at bituka. Kapag ang tatlo ay sa wakas ay nagkakasundo, lahat ng ito ay mahirap na desisyon. Gayunpaman, sa pamamagitan ng pagkuha ng isang diskarte at pag-alam kung paano naiimplusyonan ng ating saloobin, ang ating desisyon maaari nating gawin na mas madali ang mga ito.
So, let's move on how to factor your personality into your decision making. As much logic as you bring in your choices, the way you make a choice will always affect your personality. So, sa lagi nating paggawa ng isang choices, it will affect our personality. For example, nung bata tayo, lagi nating pinagbibili ang ating mga magulang ng mga laruan. For example. Pero nung lumaki tayo, nag-iba. Minsan, ang ipinagbibili, yung motor na, or yung mga mahaling gamit na. So, sa ganung bagay, it will affects our personality. Well says that our personality will changes or evolves. Personality is unavoidable considerations. Individual personality is an avoidable consideration combined with maturity and experience, but constructive self-awareness can help you weigh how much your intuition impacts your decision-making process. So, our individual personality is unavoidable because hindi lang tayo palaging bata. Kumbaga, tayo ay dumating din sa punto na tinatawag na maturity. So, sa kabila ng ating pagiging mature, minsan lumalawak din ang ating experience sa mga bagay-bagay. So, let's move on. What is interesting about choices is that they are all yours. No one other being on earth will make precisely the same choices that you do using the same exact procedure. It's because personality keeps every decision you make updated. So that's right. That hindi lang walang ibang bagay sa mundo nakapareho ng sa iyo dahil personality keeps every decision you make updated. How your brain makes decision. Decision is a multiplied mind. Your personality, characteristics, and influences blend with your beliefs, your desires, and your inspiration as you navigate the decision-making process every day. Your style informs whether you're rationally or emotionally impulsive or cautiously, spontaneously, or deliberately approach decision. So, our decision is a multiply determined. So, our beliefs, our desires, inspirations is, kumbaga, isa din sa ingredients of our personality as you navigate the decision-making process every day. Personality tests provide a self-discovery process involving very useful applications. The more you are conscious of yourself, the more consistently your opportunities, preferences, and perceptions increase. Not only does self-awareness unblock us, but it also opens up possibilities that would otherwise remain unconscious or unknown. Cultural influences and decision-making. Decision-making is a mental process that is an important part of preparing and taking influences and decision-making. Decision-making is a mental process that is an important part of preparing and taking action in a variety of ways and at a wide range of levels, including, though not limited to, budget preparation, educational preparation, policy making, and career building. Such events include people all over the world. The underlying cross-cultural disparities is decision making can be major contributing factor in cross-cultural communications, negotiation, and conflict resolution. Decision-making models. Based on the perspective the researcher takes on the role that culture plays in decision-making, one of the following models is used to think about the forecast behavioral trends in decision-making in a given community. The universal model. Typically, the scientists who use this model believe there is only a small difference in how people from different cultures make their choices. The findings obtained from one party are usually related to humans. So, This model, the scientists who use this model believe that small difference in how people from different cultures make their choices. So, diferensya or may mga pagkakaiba. How people from different cultures make their choices. The dispositional model. The adherents of the dispositional view recognize that decision-making differences are cross-cultural and support the cause of cross-cultural study. They assume that the variations found in studies reflect the omnipresence of cultural inclinations in individual minds and are expected to occur in all situations. The dynamic model. Adherents of this view often considered cross-cultural variations. They viewed cultural knowledge not as a monolithic construct that is continuously present, but as a collection of discrete knowledge that is operational as a function of the situation. The effect of culture on decision making. So, cross-cultural variance. Western theories are known for the systematic use of logical analysis, a methodical approach to solving complex problems by splitting them into their constituent parts and defining the patterns of cause and effect of the constituent parts, while Oriental philosophies are well known for their focus on holism. So, pag sinabi nating holism, it is a theory that the parts of the world having intimate interconnections. The culturally normative communication style also enhances people's responsiveness to the transmitted message and influences the perception of the communicator. It influences hiring decisions. HR agents are more likely to recruit direct, assertive, and even aggressive applicants in culture of low background, whereas the reverse trend is found in cultures of high background.
My topics about a condition of celebrating or hindering the silence of cross-cultural difference in decision-making. Priming. The automatic conditions of the lectures indicate behaviors is the emphasized by exposure to elements of the social environments in a manner of the occur below. Consciousness or purpose. For example, the word dog is the systematic crime of wolf because the two are similar animals. Time pressure. The cultural and the personal information accessible to all through cultural knowledge. First, to the represent of reports of sampling of the events in life, whereas the personal knowledge is more based on individual of tactical experience. Ang larawang ito ay napakita ng mas nakadismaya na mga problema. May kinalaman sa trabaho, kadalasan ay lumalabas ang isyu ng oras or ang kakulangan nito para sa maraming tao. Walang sapat na oras para magawa ang lahat at ito ay maaaring maging seryoso at talamak na pinagmumulan ng stress. Tila ang pag-aayos sa isang problemang ito ay maaaring gumawa ng malalaking pagkakaiba sa buhay ng maraming tao at sa kanilang kakayahan na mag-enjoy sa kanilang trabaho at sa kanilang paglilibang. Peer pressure. Individuals in collectivist societies are less likely to behave when they do not encourage to social pressure according to the cultural values. The pressure of provide reason for the decision, while individual needs to offer reason for their decisions. Cultural awareness and recruited. So usually, the terms of peer pressure is used with people are talking about behavior that are not considered socially acceptable or desirable. Use has the experimentations with alcohol or drugs. The terms of peer pressures is not socially used to describe the social desirable behavior, so is the exercising or studying.
Sometimes you need to use a different approach. If group discussion sessions cannot reach a resolution, a new strategy will need to be considered. Conversely, if new ideas never come up or no one questions views, then behavioral discussion making might not be the best choice. Well, kung ang session daw or group nga sa panag-isgot sa grupo dili makabuot ang sa desisyon, kay usa ka resolution, usa ka bagong estratehiya or strategy ang kinahanglan nga tagdon o kanon sa kasukwahi. Kung ang mga bagong idea or ideya wala gyud moabot o walay nagduwa-duwa sa pagtan-aw, nga ang himong desisyon sa pamatasan mahimong dili labing kaayo nga kapilian.